Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Steelers post-game show, or as we're going to call it today, the therapy session, where Steelers fans get to react to the embarrassing, 41-10, I believe was the final score to the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 12. Doing this and helping us out and helping everyone kind of hash out their thoughts is always Bryan Anthony Davis. What's going on, Bryan?
Wow, I am here, and first time I ever fell asleep during a Steeler game in a long, long time.
Dave Schofield, awake and ready to go?
Yeah, if you fall asleep during the game, I think Bryan should have to do the post-game show without a shirt since it wasn't working during the game, I guess. So,
yeah. This was a dud of all duds. What we'll always typically do when I'm hosting the post-game show, at least, is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. It's an article we run on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Steelers. But let's go around the horn here. Bryan, knee-jerk reaction to this loss to the Bengals.
They were not in this game from the start. They were never in this game. And Ben Roethlisberger, when he threw that interception, that it was over by then. They could not mentally come back from that.
Yep, Dave, knee-jerk reaction?
Knee-jerk reaction is I feel like a lot of people in the live chat do. I don't even want to think about the Steelers right now. This was pretty... we're going to be here for those of you that want to. I don't know that I've seen this bad of an effort all around, and it wasn't just that it was like fluky plays that didn't go your way, or just a crazy barrage of turnovers. It was just inadequacy right off the bat, and just kept going the whole game.
Yeah, let's get Tom Muir up here at $5 tip. He said, sadly, $1 for every loss. It was hot in the kitchen today. We couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle the heat, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. And after the game, Mike Tomlin said, he didn't have to say much. There wasn't much to say. Now, guys, I want to ask you real quick. Let's play the blame game. Let's play a little blame game here. Bryan, you're putting some blame. There has to be blame put on someone. Who are you blaming after this loss?
How much time do you have? I'm going to blame Ben Roethlisberger. I'm going to blame Chase Claypool. I'm going to blame everybody I could possibly blame, except for maybe Cam Hayward, and that's about it. And that includes TJ Watt. He gets blamed for me too. And everybody's going to blame Tomlin, and that's fine. You can do that. But he didn't throw the interceptions. Maybe he didn't get his team ready to play, so you blame him for that. But he's the guy you go back to. But the players on the field were substandard today.
Okay, that's fine. So you're putting the onus on the players. Dave, what about you? Blame game time.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, from the coaching staff to the players to everything. This was, it's hard to find people that are exempt. The special teams wasn't terrible. There, Jeff, when you go to try to find winners and losers, man, that's about the only place you can go. When you're trying to find any kind of winners in this game. You could lay this on the feet of about everyone. The towel boy, everybody, from one end to the other, it's on everyone, because you can't really take anything out of this that they did positively. And I'm not, granted, the Bengals showed up to play. And even if the Steelers showed up to play, they were going to have their hands full, but not like this. Not like this. Not this poor of a showing, even when a team's playing well. It's because you are that bad on that day, up and down, everybody.
It was bad, and I think that we all obviously Bryan said the players are the ones out there executing. The defensive, the plan, I'm going to say the plan, defensively and offensively, was also extremely poor. The offensive game plan of let's come out and sling it, and the answers that were given after the game were just atrocious, absolutely atrocious. They wanted to play Cam Hayward at nose tackle to try and stop the run. That worked. That worked well.
I know why.
Go ahead, Dave.
They were trying to keep him from running to the side away from him. That's just my guess. Yeah. I'm not saying, but if you put Cam in the middle, you can't say, "Oh, we're going to run this way to run away from him." If you put him in the middle, he could at least impact the play one way or the other.
That is,
it didn't work though.
That is literally a desperation move.
Yeah,
that is a desperation coach's decision. And when you think about it, I'll give you an example. People that listen to my podcast know I used to coach lacrosse. It would be like a game where I take my best offensive player, who's my best player overall, and say, I'm just going to put him on defense because I think it gives us the best chance to win. No, it's not going to work that way. You're going to get exposed either way. I felt that was when I heard Mike Tomlin say, I was like, boy, that is just that's just unbelievable. And I did say this, I'm going to get your guys' thoughts and opinions on this in a second. And that was, I tweeted this out and was, I don't think that everyone says this team needs a gut check, a morale. It's not a morale thing. It's a talent thing. They have no quality depth on this team whatsoever. None. I mean, think about the positions that we're talking about. Inside linebacker, garbage. Cornerback, garbage. Defensive line. We're talking about Isaiah Loudermilk saying, I can't believe Loudermilk can't play last week. What are we talking about here, people? Think about it.
He wasn't even supposed to dress all season.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
I know.
This is a talent thing.
I'm backing you up.
Yeah. All right. Brian, anything you want to chime in on that, go ahead, or else I'll move into the super chats.
Yeah, this is just 2 weeks ago when I went to the Lions game, they had the defense come out in introductions. And I'm watching the introductions. I'm like, really?
Okay.
Really? I mean, James Pierre. I mean, if you're looking for duds, put James Pierre on the list. I'm going to tell you that. Well, he had a terrible game as well.
He was on the list until I decided to go a completely different direction with it. I broke every rule that I made for that article. Gosh. It's a whole different article. Make sure you check it out here in about an hour on I'mStillCurrent.com. I said, I'm going to just...
I'm riveted.
If the Steelers were that bad, we're just breaking all the rules.
That's fine with me. But I'm just, the depth is terrible. Everybody wants Bush. I mean, that's the thing. The Bush equals bust thing. Everybody's on that bandwagon right now because that's where they want to go. It's a lot more than Bush. I'm telling you right now. But then the guy backing him up has a knee injury. We don't even know the extent of it, but he wasn't coming back in the game. So, I don't know what you want. They don't have the product to put on the field. And the product that's on the field, the guys that deserve to be on the field or earn their spot on the field are playing terribly.
Dave, you want to chime in on that at all about the talent? I mean, you were agreeing with me. I understand that. I don't know if you want to say anything else.
I mean, and I said it last week when there was a big thing going with it, when the defense was just not able to get a stop at all. And I was saying, Steelers Nation's up in arms about wanting to talk about the X's and O's, and right now it's the Jimmies and Joes. It's the talent out there. This is what it looks like when it's both.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is what it looks like when it's both. This was not, you didn't have the right players or the right game plan. Mike Tomlin said after last week, he's like, we tried to just, do what we do with the players we had, and we didn't mix it up. And that's on me. We should have done that. Well, if this was mixing it up, that didn't work either. This defense, 41 points, 2 weeks in a row. And yes, one of them was a defensive touchdown, but think about it. If the Steelers offensively were in this game and scoring points, how many more points would the Bengals have scored if they would have been trying to score, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's I'd go on.
Let's get some super chats up here. Mark gives us $5. Says after this loss, the top. Is it better to lose the rest of the season for a better draft pick? This is a common thread among Steeler fans. I understand what they're saying. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'll let you guys address it. Dave, we'll start with you.
No.
All right.
You play to win the game.
You're Herm Edwards. You're channeling your inner Herm Edwards. What about you, Brian?
No. I mean, you don't tank for a draft pick, and you can't ask those players to tank for a draft pick to replace them. That's just not what you do. I don't believe in tanking. I believe if you're there, you put everything into it, and you worry about next year, you worry about this year, and something crazy happening. Remember, this team was 3-4 at one point after a loss to the Bengals and went to the Super Bowl. This team has come back from this kind of stuff. Do they have the stuff to come back? Are they different than those teams? Yeah, they are. But the last time they lost 41-10, to this very team was September of, 1989. And they ended up in the playoffs after that. And this is a much better team than that team in 1989.
There you go. Little history lesson. Tom Muir gives us $5. His defense was over penetrating and over pursuing on the run. Ben was bad. The offensive line looks more like a dotted line. So we're going to try to stay focused here, folks. It's easy for all of us to kind of get into this literal hurricane of thoughts and emotions, and it just all comes spewing out in some random podcast form. But we're not going to do it. We're going to stay focused, and we are going to say offense first, as we always do in part one when I'm the host, not when that crazy Canucks hosting. It is offense in part one. We'll do defense in part two. Let's start where I believe we have to start on offense, and that is not with Ben Roethlisberger. It's on the offensive line. The offensive line. Let's talk about some of this on the offensive line. Do you look at the numbers for Ben Roethlisberger? He was 24 for 41, 263, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He obviously the turnovers were huge. He had a sack fumble as well. I'm trying to see the sack totals here. Give me 1 second. Does anyone know off the top of their head? Dave, go for it.
The Bengals had 3 sacks while the Steelers had 2 sacks.
Okay. So offensively running the ball was really no bueno either. I mean, Najee Harris, 8 for 23. Kalen Ballage with some garbage time runs, 3 for 21. They finished 15 carries for 51 yards, 3.4 average, a long run of 13, which was that Ballage run that I mentioned. Guys, this offensive line, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the performance that gets Zach Banner in. Yes or no? Dave, what do you think?
You mean after this performance, or they should have put him in during this one?
No. I think that this is the performance that if they're going to make a switch, they do it now.
Now's the time. I mean, honestly, we said going into this season that, Kevin Dawson should be the Steelers' best offensive lineman. And it's not like he was having a tear the roof off season, but I think we're seeing that right now. They struggle to run the ball. Jeffrey Benedict talks about this in his film rooms, is that it's hard to get Matt Canada's offense going if you can't run the ball inside. And since Kevin Dawson has been out, they can't run the ball inside. And when you talk about all the Steelers rush for 51 yards, 33.333333 repeating percent. That is 1/3 of their rushing yards came on 2 carries by Kalen Ballage in the final 2 minutes of the game. Yeah. 1/3 of their rushing yards came on those 2 carries then. They couldn't run the ball, even when they wanted to run the ball. And people were upset on Twitter and everything, and Steelers beat reporters and commenters and everything about, the Steelers, they just, what do? They're coming out throwing the ball. They come out in the one drive. They hand the ball off to Najee twice. They get, I think, 4 yards. He had nowhere to run. He didn't have anywhere to run. So then they're left with I'd still call 3rd and 6, 3rd and long, though they converted it through the air. But it really was, man, they just didn't have anywhere to run the ball. So the offensive line, this is the week that if you say, you know what, we want to change it up, let's change it up. But I'd say you try to get Zach Banner in there, but also at the same time, you don't have that much to change up. You only got the players on your roster that you can work with, but they got to do something.
Did Banner end up coming in and playing in this game? Did they move Chooks to left at all? I'm just reading some comments in the live chat.
I saw a report that, it looks like Banner's in the huddle. But then at the very next to start the drive, unless it was that very last drive when I have no idea why Ben Roethlisberger was still in there. If they did it on the very last drive, but on the next to last drive, there was rumors that he was going to, and they didn't. He just came in on the jumbo package.
All right, Bryan, thoughts on the Banner maybe being inserted into the offensive line?
Yeah, I can see it happening. Just like Dave said, this is the week to go ahead and do it. They're responsible for the poor play on offense. I mean, I'm not saying that the quarterback's not. We're going to get to that. But Najee Harris had nowhere to run when he was in there. And the only reason Ballage had room to run, which I like Ballage as a backup, he's not Najee, but the only reason he had room to run at the end, they were playing the pass in the last 5 minutes of the game. And that's where most of Ben's numbers came from too.
I think about the sequence of plays where the Steelers offensive line actually got some push. And 2 plays, they gained 9 yards on a 3rd and 1. Ben hit Claypool between the 1 and the 1, and he dropped it. And then on 4th and 1, they didn't go for it. They punted the ball away, and the defense continued to do their best Swiss cheese impersonation. However, let's talk about that quarterback, Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. I already read off his stats. There were times where I was thinking, okay, let's talk like first interception, perfect example. That's got clear miscommunication. Now, who that's on, we'll never know. Unless someone comes out and says Chase did the wrong route or Chase Claypool says Ben didn't do the right thing. Well, it's all purely speculation. But, guys, if you're just talking about Ben's play and his performance in this game, what do you think? Bryan, we'll start with you.
Okay, let's start with me on this. Yeah, Ben was terrible today. Ben was absolutely terrible. I don't know what happened on that first interception. He didn't come back from it. The long ball to Chase Claypool, I thought it was underthrown again. We saw what happened when he underthrew Claypool last week. That was one of the reasons that they didn't pull off the upset in that game last week. He's now he's underthrowing players. He has a guy that could come and pick it up, but it's just not happening. Ben has looked good the past couple of weeks. This is a week where he's regressed. So when it's up and down, that's Ben.
Dave, what do you think about Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger?
He's got good games and bad games, and this was not a good one. Something just seemed off the whole game. Even some of the shorter throws just didn't seem like they were right on target. And I don't know if he was expecting the receiver to step one way and they were the other. It could have just been not on the same page, or it could have just been inaccuracies. That's probably the reason why Ben wanted to stay into the very end, because he probably wanted to try to at least get something to build off at the end, that he was making things more accurate. But I don't know. It just all seemed off with the passing game.
Well, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure on the quarterback when you're seeing your defense just giving up touchdown after touchdown in the blink of an eye. And a part of that is Ben throwing that interception didn't help matters much. But when you're seeing your defense look like they did for a second straight week, you're sitting there thinking, we got to put points on the board or else we're done. And they were, because they couldn't. But still, Lewis, he gives us $1.99, says, as I keep saying, Ben is done. Bryan, you agree?
No, he's not done. He wasn't done in the better performances that he had the last few weeks. He wasn't done when we were begging for him to not have COVID and play against Detroit. He's not done. I know we're emotional and up and down, and we're making the best Madden 2021 moves that we possibly can for this team, but this isn't Madden, guys. You just don't replace a guy. You have to have somebody to replace him with. You can't just, when you're picking at 22 or 24, you just don't get that replacement for him. So I had friends complaining last week that they should have got Justin Herbert. How are they going to get Justin Herbert? He was 6th overall. And everybody wants Kenny Pickett. But you know what? That's for next year to think about. If you want to salvage this year and you want to keep on watching this year, hope these players do well. Hope that the coaches come up with a better game plan. This was a very bad game for Ben Roethlisberger. Doesn't mean he's done.
Dave, is Ben done?
If being done means he has to be as good as he was in, let's say, 2014, then if that's your expectations, then that's why you would make that statement. But the thing is, he's not the player that he was. It doesn't mean that he's done, because, well, frankly, he's on the football field. Should they move on from him right now? No. I think they should have pulled him out to save, any possibility of injury late in the game? Absolutely. I think they should have gotten everyone out of there that they could have when there was no chance. Sorry, they don't have a 31-point play that you can pull off there in the last 2 minutes. But so he's not done. He's just not the player that he used to be. And if to you that means he's done, then that's your opinion. I'm saying he's what the Steelers have right now. And if the Steelers would have gone out and got a new young quarterback or something for this year, and they were going to have to try to play, behind this offensive line, it probably wasn't going to be good for them. So I'd much rather have the old veteran quarterback that's been with the team for forever behind this line as they're trying to pull it together than it would be someone else trying to get back there and learn what they're doing as well.
Good, Brian. What were you going to say?
All right. At bad, Ben can't do it consistently. Why can't y'all understand that? Hey, Knight Rider, I'm not the GM, okay? I'm not the general manager of this team. This is the team that we have here. If there was a better option, they would put Mason Rudolph in. He's not the better option. You guys want to throw away players just when they have a bad game. You want to throw away Devin Bush because he had a knee injury and isn't the same a year after. So listen here, live chat. I love most of you, but some of you want to blame the games on us. It's not us. We have a job to do here, and our job is to explain the game. You want to throw away Ben? That's great. Throw away Ben after all he's done for you, but he still has better of a chance to win a game this year than Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins. Let's bring those guys in. You're going to complain about them too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, also at the same time, you know, Mason Rudolph did have a game in there against an 0-whatever team, and they couldn't get the victory. But that, like I said, I'm not laying that all on him either, because trust me, I said that before. But bottom line is, you've got to go out there with what you've got and see if you and just make it work. And right now, I don't know that how many of the Steelers coaching staff and front office, everyone else is kind of scratching their heads right now. Like, what are we going to do when we get together tomorrow and try to do this? Good for them, because they're getting paid lots of money to do that. And you know what? That's why I don't have any answers. I mean, we could all talk as fans about what we'd want to see. And chances are, if they did exactly what we wanted, it probably wouldn't end out well.
No, I mean, with Roethlisberger, it comes down to your expectations for him. I came into the season knowing that he was going to be a quarterback that needed a running game. He needed a more of a balanced option. The offensive line isn't what he needs. He's also not going to be dropping back in 8-step drops. He wants the ball out of his hands quick. It's a really bad situation for the Steelers offense right now. But let's talk about the pass catchers quickly. The pass catchers weren't horrible today. I thought Deontay Johnson had a pretty good game. Maybe I'm just looking for a positive. I thought Deontay Johnson has continued to progress throughout his career. I mean, he's become a better route runner. Dave, what do you think about Deontay Johnson, just off the top of your head?
I would say on offense, of the players that got much of an opportunity, he probably had the best game. I mean, it's kind of hard for Najee when he only gets the ball 8 times just because it's not working. It was kind of difficult. I mean, Freiermuth only, had 4 targets and then ended up getting smacked in the head on his touchdown. But other than that, I mean, Deontay Johnson, I mean, he's out there giving you a lot. So I can't really complain about anything there if you're looking for a bright spot.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, you can go talk about any pass catchers you want, but I thought that Deontay Johnson, Freiermuth, another, when given the opportunity, they made plays.
Yeah, I tell you what, I really love Deontay Johnson in this game. I love what Freiermuth is doing. I'm a big fan of Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool was awful today. I know he pulled in some catches. He had some drops that I thought were egregious. He had a very dumb penalty by ripping a guy's helmet off. There's just a lot about Chase Claypool that I did not like in this game.
Claypool seems like almost like an over-emotional player.
Yeah, and there was some inconsistency problems as well, yeah.
And I feel like that's also because of those emotions, which, hey, you're fine. If you're an emotional, fiery individual, like that's not a bad thing, but it is if it throws you off your game. Yeah. He seems like he gets thrown off his game, like the face masking penalty, like that's awful. And then you come back and you have a huge drop. Everyone always asks me on Twitter, can you please talk about why he falls down so much?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'm not sure if he needs balance work or something like that, but he does seem to find his way on the ground a lot. Let's get this super chat up here. B-Man Low gives us $5. He said, this is not a playoff caliber team. There's no heart specifically on defense. They're soft. On offense, aside from Ben's issues, there is no number one wide receiver. Well, let me ask you, since we're talking about pass catchers, and there's a lot that is correct about that statement. Yeah. We'll put that out there first. Does an offense need to have a pure number one wide receiver in today's pass-happy NFL? That's the question. Brian, what do you think?
Absolutely not. You don't need the Antonio Browns dominating a game anymore. You need to have the ability to spread it around. And the Steelers really had that with, in fact, they still have that. It's just not working out. But they do have guys that could be number ones possibly in other offenses. I think it's time to say that that Deontay Johnson could be a number one on that team, and he might be Ben's number one on that team. But he still needs other guys to take the pressure off of him. But I believe in a lot of number twos. And when Juju was in there, you had James Washington, Claypool, Deontay. That's a lot of good number twos that will stand out and be number one. If you look at an offense that has one guy this week going off and the other guys, also contributing but not going off as much, that's a big deal. I think Juju is really missed, and a lot of people are down on him because he's not putting up 1,400 yards a year. But you look at the Cincinnati Bengals today, and who was their number one receiver? It wasn't Jamar Chase today. It was T. Higgins today was their number one receiver. So when you have a bunch of number twos, then you have four number ones when the other guys are number twos. Then the next week, you've got three number twos and another number one. That's a possibility.
Dave, what do you think? Do you need a genuine number one receiver in today's NFL?
That was a really good point that Brian made. He's like, look at the Bengals and you say that old Jamar Chase is a number one. Well, he's really young to be quote unquote a number one. But like they said, when you have that much, when you have a bunch of players that on any 1 week could be that guy that steps up, it really helps. That example of T. Higgins today is really good. You don't have to, but I will tell you what, it does really help if you do. You're not going to be like I don't know, but think about it. How many, it used to just be a number one wide receiver was just every team's best wide receiver, but people have changed it to mean something else, that you have to fit into this elite category of doing these certain things. If you really look at it, I mean, how many teams actually have one? Maybe half of them, so it's really nice to have one. But you can get by with not, just simply because that's the way the NFL is. So the more options that you have, the better. But right now, it's just that the Steelers' options don't seem to be really constantly coming through. Yes, it hurts that they don't have Juju. James Washington has not been really stepping up. I don't know if it's just him and Ben Roethlisberger thing or whatnot, but it doesn't even seem like they have. I used to say, if you have three number twos, you're really good. It doesn't even feel like they have that.
James Washington would be like a number 6, the way the Steelers use him, it seems.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just not good. But I'll tell you what, enough of the offense. We have a lot to talk about with the defense. If you're listening live or watching live on YouTube or Facebook, stay tuned. We're not going anywhere. We're going to take a short break. If you're on the podcast side, head over to part 2 where we talk about the defense. It's going to get interesting. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to the second part of the post-game show therapy session after the Steelers get lambasted by the Bengals in Week 12. And joining me as always, Brian Anthony Davis and Dave Schofield. Knee-jerk reaction for the defense time. Brian, what's your knee-jerk reaction from the Steelers D?
Depleted and possibly deleted.
I like it. I like that. Dave, what about you? What's your knee-jerk reaction?
You can't get pushed around on defense. I mean, and you can say the same for offense. This team just got pushed around. Coach Tomlin, I mean, he identified the problem and he's right. He said it at halftime and it ended up being, true even in the second half. They just got beat in the trenches on both sides of the ball. So when you're a defense, you can't get pushed around. You can't get pushed around, and they got pushed around.
Yeah, you can't argue that at all. Let's get to this, Alfred. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. This is not necessarily specific to the defense, but Alfred gives us $1.99. Says, just can't stop feeling like there's no camaraderie. This is something that as fans, we only get to see game days, the interactions with players and how they respond. Definitely has been a unique year. You know, a lot of veterans left the team, whether it was Pouncey in retirement, DeCastro gets released with injury. You're basically bringing in a whole new offensive line. On defense, you lose some talent as well. A player like Mike Hilton, which he came back and got a pick 6 of Ben. We all saw that this week. What do you think about the camaraderie on this team? Maybe even just all season, not necessarily after this one loss. Bryan, what do you think?
I see a lot of camaraderie in a lot of places. I think if I'm going to try to dissect what Alfred is saying, I'm thinking that there's a disconnect between Ben and the younger players is what he's seeing. I don't know if that's true. But I think that's a possibility. If you feel like there's no camaraderie on this team and it's showing up on your screen, then there might not be. I'm just not sure. Every time a younger player steps out in defense of Ben Roethlisberger, when somebody's saying that he's done or somebody's saying that he had a bad game or there's criticism, they jump up to defend him. So I'm really not sure, but it seems like in a lot of places there's camaraderie. Now, were they dancing in the end zone all day like Cincinnati, which was some of the worst athletic dancing I've ever seen? No, they weren't. They didn't have an opportunity. But I think when things are going well, it's there. And I think it's not like 1986 when Mark Malone's yelling at everybody and screaming at him after he had the worst play ever. You know, you guys don't remember that as much as I do. But yeah, there's a possibility that's not there, but I'm not really seeing too much evidence of it.
Dave, what are your thoughts on the camaraderie?
It's just so hard to judge because, I mean, we see such a little snapshot of everything that goes on with this organization. And that's what we have to remember as fans, but we don't like to feel that way. But the problem is, I mean, what are we getting? Maybe we get to see maybe 2 or 3% of really what goes on with this organization. And that's even in the day of, you know, in this day of social media. There's so much that goes on behind closed doors with these players and meetings and practices and everything else. And we're trying to say that we have solutions to problems that we aren't privy to so much of the information to even come up with it. It's why it's frustrating. But at the same time, what else are you going to do? Because the team's not getting the job done. When it comes to camaraderie, I don't know how in the world you could even judge that unless someone actually comes out and says something about it.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that were interesting earlier in the season when Ben was on the ground and no offensive lineman helped him up. That obviously made headlines. I saw Najee get popped today. Kind of looked like someone hit him a little late. No one came to his defense. Weird things like that you notice. But again, just a snapshot. This is going back to the offense, but this is good before we get into the defense. Alan gives us $4.99. He says, people keep saying the line is young and will get better. Is Kevin Green and Dan Moore, are they physically talented enough to get better, or is their ceiling limited? Dave, you're the O-line expert. What do you think?
I don't know how much you all catch stuff on Steelers.com. I know there's something that Jeff always enjoys on game day. It's an interview that Bob Labriola does with Coach Tomlin. Today I checked out his Asked and Answered column where it was just fans asking questions, and It was about Kendrick Green, and should the Steelers be looking to move him to guard because he can't physically do this. And first of all, Labriola says, first of all, give him the season and also give him beyond the season. And this was why. And and this is a really good point. And this is what I would say as someone with the offensive line, although I don't know about this at the NFL level, just what I've seen is that you get these guys coming out of college, you get them in there. This is why you don't always throw your offensive lineman in right away, is because you want them to go through the whole regimen of the NFL workouts, the NFL strength training. And that's the one thing that Kevin Dawson had going for him last year, is that dude was already just a beast when it came to strength and weight and everything else. So that's why he could come in when they called on him right away as a rookie. These other two guys, I give Kendrick Green a chance to actually go through an off-season workout and put on the muscle and everything else. along with the athletic ability that they want out of the position, and then see what he can do. I think the biggest thing with these two young guys is get them through the Steelers offseason doing what they want to help get their body a little bit better to be the type of players in the NFL, because honestly, it's really tough to get an offense. If a guy is that ready as an offensive lineman, from that standpoint, chances are they're going pretty high in the draft. That's why it was amazing that the Steelers got Kevin Dawson in the 4th round. And with these two guys being 3rd and 4th round picks, part of it is they need some time to get their body to be the best NFL player they can be.
Bryan, you want to add anything to that?
There's really not much to add to that, but let me go back to 1989 for the second time in this podcast. And in 1988, the Steelers drafted Dermontti Dawson, and he was a guard for the entire season. They drafted in the 3rd round that year a guy named Chuck Lanza, which they thought was going to be the future of the team. In 1989, Lanza's basically gone. They found out that he wasn't the right guy to do it. They moved Dermontti over to a Hall of Fame career. Now, what I'm saying here, this is a little bit of a different situation. When you're a rookie at center, offensive line's one thing, and Dave said it, but when you're a rookie at center, that's a whole lot more eyes on you. There's so many eyes on you. There's so much more to know than just being the guard or the tackle, which those are tough positions as well. But center's something else. And for him to be lasting this long and showing signs of brilliance on a team that is at 5-5-1, probably overachieving at this point in the season. So this is an experiment that you wait to see how he plays the rest of the year and where things go. But I don't think that you really need to replace this guy already when it's just your rookie season. Remember the Steelers defense in the past 15 years? It seemed like under Dick LeBeau, it seemed that if you were a defender, didn't matter how high you were drafted, you were a red shirt most of that rookie season. We saw it with Troy Polamalu. We saw it with Cam Hayward. We saw it with a lot of guys that went from busting eyes of fans that weren't patient to, Hall of Famers. There you go.
We'll see. And that's what we said a lot with this offensive line was, are these players starting out of necessity or because they earned the job? And that's something that we'll be debating for a long time.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next super chat. I guess it's Evocative Pizza. $4.99 says, haven't won a playoff game in 4 years and it'll be 5. Defensive coordinator, special teams, and head coach all the same in that tenure. When will there be accountability? Okay, guys, let's answer the question here. Bryan, we'll start with you. Give you a chance to answer first. Should there be accountability to the coaching staff? If so, who? And should someone be gone at season's end?
This is a question that, man, I don't want to answer without even going on a rant, but I'm going to keep one rant per show. All right. Mike Tomlin's been there 15 years. There's a lot of narrative that he's ruined this team, and that's what I'm reading. I'm not saying that. But he's done so many things over the past couple years to take teams that were struggling, to take a team with Mason and Duck and at least having an 8-8 season. I know that's not good enough for everybody. I don't think it's there. If I'm going to be consistent in the way I've been talking the past couple years, I was blaming Randy Fiedner for a lot of the problems on offense. And then they go ahead and replace him. Is 1 year enough to say that this is a problem? Is 1 year enough to realize that sometimes you've got to move players around and bring the right people in for your system to go ahead and get rid of somebody? I think that's a little too early. The defense, we were all ready to get rid of one, Mr. Butler. The Butler, he did it. That's what everybody was saying. Back then in 2019, you get Minka, you get back a healthy Vince Williams, and that defense was on the rise, and that defense, was pretty high in the top 5 the last couple of years. Is it the problem with Butler in Canada, or is it a problem with the right players aren't there, and the right players that are there are injured? That's the question you got to ask. And right now, I'm answering that I don't know if it's I don't know if it's the players. I don't know if it's the coaching. I'm still not ready to blame the coaching. I'm blaming the guys that are throwing bad interceptions on the field. I'm blaming the guys that are dropping passes, a short first down pass, and maybe so much more, maybe a touchdown and Chase Claypool. And I'm not loving the schemes right now, but is this the scheme that you have to use for the players you have? That's the only answers I have for that, fellas.
Dave, you want to chime in on that?
I'm good.
Todd Williams gives us $4.99, but no comment.
I have his next comment.
All right, go ahead.
This was the next one that he had unless there was supposed to be something there, and this was a follow-up to it. So
Okay.
There you go.
Todd asks, case in point, fellas, if you know you have green O linemen, how do you go into the season knowing this will
With a QB,
okay.
like Ben.
Yeah.
What I would say about that is, if you know your offensive line is completely rebuilt, what would you rather do? Go in with the quarterback that you don't really know what they do and can't truly assess them because the offensive line, or you go in with a quarterback that even though he's on the decline, you at least know what he has to do this. That's what I said about Ben, is that if you're going to be rebuilding your offensive line, I'd much rather do it with a quarterback that is on the decline and trying to play, 1 or 2 more years and do that, rather than not even really be able to truly assess what's going on. How many first overall pick quarterbacks do we not even really know how good they are because they go on such a bad team? And if this offensive line was going to be like this, I'd much rather have it with a quarterback that you kind of know that at least what you could have had from him. I mean, if we're going this season with Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins, I mean, especially those that are calling for Dwayne Haskins, how could you accurately judge what he can do with this offensive line? So that's why Jeff and I talked about in the offseason. Jeff, right away, when to start last offseason, was kind of wanted a shiny new quarterback. I'm like, doesn't do any good to get a new quarterback if you're not going to rebuild the line first. I would try to rebuild the line first. Now, the question is, are they actually having any success rebuilding this line? And that's still a really big question up in the air.
Well, we're all talking about the offense. I feel like the defense.
Yeah, we need to talk about the defense here.
I mean, there was a pick six, but the Steelers still surrendered 41 points to the Cincinnati Bengals in the first half. They didn't force one punt in the entire half. It wasn't until the third quarter that they forced a punt. It basically, I know there were times where I think the only stop they made was on that third and goal after the interception on the Steelers' first offensive possession. After that, it was just like delaying the inevitable is what I kept on saying on Twitter. Oh, it's 3rd and 6, delaying the inevitable. They're going to get it. They're going to score points. So let's talk about this defense first, because I feel like the defense, we're all bashing Ben, we're all bashing the offense, but in reality, the defense deserves a lot of blame. Let's talk about the tackling. My question is can the tackling improve in season with the rules of the NFLPA and the collective bargaining agreement? Dave, what are your thoughts on that?
Say that one more time.
Can the tackling improve? I mean,
they can't tackle in practice.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So
practice.
Without being able to tackle in practice, can you actually expect any significant improvement in that area?
Well, and probably not. I mean, and that's why sometimes early in the season, the Steelers might tackle better than other teams because they actually tackle in practice during training camp, which other teams don't do, but now they can't practice it anymore. You almost have to ask yourself, is that actually doing them a disservice? Because they work on tackling and now to their point that they basically can't tackle in practice. So it would be nice if they could, but I don't see how the CBA even allows them to work on it.
They can't. They can't. They're only allowed so many padded practices, I think, a season or something like that. Bryan, what are your thoughts on the tackling for the Steelers?
What tackling? It was hardly there. James Pierre was terrible. There were missed tackles here and there, and it's been happening every week, and it's getting more egregious. I don't know whether it's the fact that they are so depleted, and there's guys that really should be just depth pieces, not starting every week. I don't know what it is, but the tackling is a problem.
Go ahead, Dave.
I got to jump back in because I don't think they had as many missed tackles this week as they did last week.
No,
I think they just got blown off the ball.
Yeah.
So part of it, like with the run game, is that they're getting blown off the ball. So when you're not getting contact with anyone at all, I mean, how many times was Joe Mixon running free? You can't miss the tackle when he's running free. So granted, the tackling is not good. I actually thought it was worse last week. They just didn't even get in a position to tackle this week. That's just my knee-jerk reaction.
I don't think I can stress how huge a loss Tyson Alualu was for the Steelers. He was so good and so versatile on that line that it allowed someone like Chris Wormley to only play sparingly. When you thrust Chris Wormley into a starting role, well, you're seeing what you get, and he's a depth piece. It's something Jeffrey Benedict has said a lot on his Cutting Room Floor podcast. Chris Wormley as a fourth defensive lineman is tremendous at his job. Having him as number 2, it's not good. It's not good. And that's what's happening. When you lose someone like Tyson Alualu, when Stephon Tuitt continues to be out and it's looking more and more like he's going to miss the entire season, I would be stunned if he comes back at this point. But nonetheless, the tackling was an issue, but the run defense was a huge issue as Joe Mixon rushed for 116 yards in the first half, finished with 165 on 28 carries, a 5.9 yard average, 2 touchdowns, a 32-yard long. Oh, boy. Let's talk about the rush defense. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah. Where was it? It just – I will say this. I thought it was a big step when after, getting that first big run by Mixon and then lining up off sides or coming across early, that they pulled Devin Bush for the rest of the drive. Kind of surprised they went back to him, but then again, with Spillane getting hurt, I don't even know what point he got hurt. They were going to have to anyway, most likely. But they were just getting blown off the ball, moved so much that the holes were so big that and blockers were getting to the second level guys. That's part of your job as a defensive lineman, is to not let offensive linemen off to go block the linebackers. That's why sometimes defensive linemen get called for holding. They're like, what do you mean they're holding? They're trying to grab a hold of the lineman to keep him from going to block a linebacker. And the linebackers are getting caught up with the offensive line. And they just got moved all over the place. So run defense was just non-existent. I mean, the Bengals literally could have almost decided they weren't going to pass the ball the entire game and they were just going to run it. And they would have, I mean, it might not have been 41-10, but I still think they would have won the game if they would have had 0 pass attempts.
They were able to throw it too. We'll get to that in a second. Brian, your thoughts on the run defense?
Wasn't there either. I mean, when at one point Mixon had 164. I know you mentioned how many, but I don't have it on I can't remember what it is.
165.
So he had only one more after that. And they were tearing this team apart, and we saw a quarterback tear them up last week. You saw for the first touchdown in this game, you saw a quarterback tear you up this week, and for what was that, 32 yards for Burrow. So all I'm saying is that they're not playing the run like they used to. And when I say they used to, in this season, they're just not playing the run the same. So it's just they're a mess on defense. And they went from the announcers today said that they went from 11th to 23rd, and they're probably going to go down a whole lot more because this run defense is getting them shredded.
Yeah, they definitely hit. Dave's looking at his notebook. Oh boy.
Oh yeah. No, keep going.
Oh, okay.
I'm
I thought you
going to
found
see
your. I thought you found.
I was
your-
looking. They were talking about that was just defensive yards in general. I was going to look up specifically the run defense. I mean, going into the Detroit game, the Steelers' run defense was 15th in the NFL, and going into this game, they were 26th. So, and I imagine that's going to get worse. I mean, you went from middle of the league, and even before the Detroit game, I think they were even as high as 12th going into Chicago. So you're talking about going almost to the top 10 of run defenses in the league to the bottom, probably the bottom 5 in a matter of 4 weeks. It's just that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good at all. And the pass defense was really not better. Joe Burrow kind of had his way as well. 20 of 24. Talk about an efficient day. Only had to throw for 190, 1 touchdown. He was intercepted once. Some might say he should have been intercepted twice. Yeah, Highsmith couldn't bring it down. Was sacked 2 times. When you look at the Steelers' defensive pass defenses, Minka Fitzpatrick obviously with the interception, Akella Witherspoon had one, and Isaiah Loudermilk got a piece of one. That was it. James Pierre got turned around on more than one occasion. There were penalties. I know Cam Sutton got called for a defensive pass interference early in the game. What do you think about the pass defense here? Dave, we'll start with you.
When you finally get the job done to force them into 3rd and long, you can't let them make easy catches for first downs. Yeah. I mean, I don't like the philosophy of only rushing 3 on 3rd and long because you dropped everyone back and yet you're still giving them easy catches. You know, if you're going to do that, you might as well send 6 guys and at least make them have to throw it too quick before they could even reach the sticks. So the pass defense, it's kind of like all you need is one weakness and the other team can exploit it. And that's all it takes. So you're only as strong as your weakest link. And unfortunately it got picked on some today, and now it's 8 straight games where the Steelers have lost whenever Joe Hayden wasn't in the lineup.
Yeah, and there was one play, the T. Higgins touchdown catch on James Pierre, where you're like, gosh, if that's Hayden, he's at least putting his hand on the football, if not maybe even intercepting that pass. Because Pierre was in good position. It's almost like he just completely lost the football when it was in the air. Just absolutely repulsive. Brian, what were your thoughts on the pass defense?
Dave summed it up really well. I mean, these guys were not defending. Not having Joe Hayden in there is a big problem too, guys. I mean, it was great to see Minka get an interception. I loved it, but not much was good on that end either.
Yeah, I agree there. Okay, let's see here. Let's try to look through the stat line. Boy, this was just an atrocious outing. And honestly, if you missed the game and you are just listening to us,
it was really not what we're saying, making it sound.
It was worse. Well, I don't think we're giving it justice for just how bad this defensive performance was. And again, like I said earlier in the show, I don't think it's all based solely on, the lack of Joe Hayden being in there. It was just was bad all around. So Brian,
it would have helped, but not 31 points worth of help.
We have a policy here on our YouTube channel. If you donate money, we're going to bring your message up. And so we had someone donate $10. Scotland. Brian said he wanted to address this. So he said, Bad, you're missing the point. No one's blaming you for the Steelers losing, like you said, for some stupid reason. Lost respect for you just now going off and ranting at your audience just now. So, Brian, have at it.
I'll be glad to. And Scotland, I lose respect for me pretty much every week on the show as well. So that's not a problem. I did call out the live chat, and I did. And we address the Ben Roethlisberger situation every time they lose, that he's done. Now, Knight Rider, I jumped on him too because he had the question, because if you go back and look at it, he said, at Bad, when are you going to realize, or when are you going to admit? It's like, look, he is at the end of his career. He's a 39-year-old player, but they have not been in a position to bring that guy in. You could bring that guy in at 24. His name's JP Lozman. And if you don't know who JP Lozman is, you didn't follow the draft the year Ben got drafted. So this is what they're working with, and everybody wants to get rid of him right away. Should have I called out the live chat in general? Well, Probably not. No. Am I going to apologize for it? No, I'm not. And the reason I'm not going to apologize for it is because we have a platform here and we're blessed to have this platform. And we are going to get called out on every dumb take that we make. And even a good take is going to be misconstrued sometime. Do we take that risk every time we open our mouths? Yes, we do. And I have no problem. And if you know anything about me, you know, one, I'm going to admit every time I was wrong. I'm going to do that. Every time I'm wrong, I will do that. And besides, I think Jeff, Dave, and I are very equal with how well we treat the live chat, because we mention every week how blessed we are to have you all in here, and I appreciate that. But getting attacked every time we say something that you don't agree with, sometimes, you know, you got to fight back. Knight Rider, do I have a problem with him whatsoever? Not at all. And I respect what he has to say. But when you at me, I'm going to come back at you. And that's what
don't at me, bro.
So if I did offend anybody with that, I will apologize if I offended you. Now, Scotland, thank you for the $10. Thank you for having the backs of the people in the live chat and saying that you lost respect for me there too. I have no problem with that, because the only thing that I will surmise from that comment, that you don't have the experience with me that some of these people have for the last couple of years. If you keep on listening, I think you'll probably change your opinion back of me again, and I'll earn that respect back. And I have no problem doing so. So if that offended you, Scotland, I will say to you, I apologize, but get to know me a little bit more.
As a quick editor's note here, I want to say that if someone does give us a donation or a live chat, you know, we're going to do the best we can to get it on the screen. Like I sat on that $10 for a while because we won't want to just stop what we're talking about. We're going to try to go with the flow of the show. We'll get it on there for sure. If it's not right away, don't take offense to it. It's not that we're, you know, purposefully not bringing it up or anything like that. Someone said, you all are homers, just admit it. I admit I'm a homer every single week when I do my game picks. Like, we're fans. Like, we're fans here. Like, this isn't Stan Savern and Charlie Batch. Like, you want to listen to those guys, go listen to those guys. If you want a fan's opinion, this is where you should be. The fan's opinion. We are a fan-driven site. We are a fan-driven podcast platform, and that's what I feel like draws a lot of fans to us. Dave, go ahead.
And I was going to say, as you can see, basically how a lot of people are in the live chat along with us. We were really fired up to start this show. And as the show got on, we're kind of calming down, and just to realize that, I mean, it was just so embarrassing as being a part of Steelers Nation to see that performance on the field. And we were frustrated. We want answers and we want everything fixed, and we don't. And it is. And then finally, you know, we're calming down and we're just like, yeah, this is what it is. I mean, they came out and had an absolute stinker. Do you know what's really nice, though? I could say this for closing thoughts, but I'm going to say it right now. Might be closing thoughts anyway, right, Jeff?
It
is, you know what's really nice? None of those points carry over to next week. The Steelers have the opportunity to put it together next week at Heinz Field. Now, does it really give us much hope that they could come out and do that? No. If there was any game for this team to be ready to go and fire it up and say that you're going to go out there and give it your best, this was it. I mean, we talked about it on the preview. I wasn't going to go as far as what Bad said is like that he was, you know, guarantee that they're going to come out and win this game. You know, that's what happens when we do that thing. My thing is I thought for sure that if any time the Steelers were going to come out and give us their best effort, it's going to be going in to that putrid state to have to play that team that already beat them once this year, beat them last year, 2-game winning streak against the Steelers on the road, AFC North football. If you're ever going to see the best that the Steelers have this season, this was going to be it. This was not the best that the Steelers had. They're not a great football team, even when they play great, but they're not this bad. So they need to get this figured out, because they get to start over with the score 0-0 next week. But if they're still anywhere close to the way they played this week, it's not going to be 0-0 for long, just like it wasn't this week.
There you go. Bryan, any final thoughts for you?
My final thoughts are this team was outmatched in this game. I agree with Dave. Next week, they are going to come back in and they're going to have an opportunity. A lot of times in their past, we've seen the Steelers come out and lose a game they shouldn't have lost. Now, I'm not saying that that's what this was, but I'm going to say that they could come up against a Ravens team at 425, and 425 equals prime time. It's the CBS game of the week, and that's a big deal. And there's not many other options in that game. And this is a team that seems to shine when that happens. They were never in this game. Never have I felt in a long time that the Steelers were out of it after one series. And I felt like that when that first interception hit. So all I'm going to say is the Steelers are a team that they get it together. They're not going to fold right now. And they're definitely not going to. So, you know what? Love this team. You have the right to be mad at this team. And that's no problem. But just when you think that you're done with them, they'll come back and surprise you. So let's hope that's next week. But for this week, I'm disappointed as all of you. Man, I was mad that my family was putting up the tree today. I was mad that I had to continue to watch that game because I didn't want to watch that game after the first quarter. I was kind of done. But I'm coming back next week. And if they start off next year at 0-15, I'm there with bells on, whether I have to do it or not. Because I would have never turned it off, even though I wanted to. Because that's how much we love this team. And I look up right now, there's 368 eyes on us as we speak. There's another 63 on Facebook. And when I see that, that shows how much you care about this team. And you're frustrated right now. And it's, once again, it's okay to be frustrated with this team, but you're not going away either. You're just going to be angry about it. And be angry because I'm not happy with this effort either. But this is the 53 guys this week that we have. And this is the 53 guys that we're going to cheer for. And the 53 that make up the roster next week, we're going to cheer for them. And we're probably going to laud or complain about them next week.
Scotland gives us another $10. These make sense. Emotions are hot, not offended, just taking up for the audience and listeners. Love y'all's show and listen all week. Guess I misunderstood your rant. Much love to you guys. Go Steelers. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think the fans need to understand one thing. We at Behind the Steel Curtain are going to be here no matter what. You're never going to see us cancel shows or not provide content just because of a loss or a losing streak of any kind. We're going to be here. And so if you're someone that loves the Steelers, no matter what, win, lose, or draw, we'll be here waiting for you. And that's on the podcast side, wherever you get your podcasts or Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain, you can subscribe, get all of our content, not just that. That's live on Facebook and YouTube, but also at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Our community there is very knowledgeable. It's a good, diverse community. I recommend everyone go in there and be a part of the comment section. It's a lot of fun, but we will be here no matter what. So take that to the bank. And we'll be back next week after the Steelers play the Ravens at home at 4:25. So make sure you check us out for that. In the meantime, Steelers lose again. And here we go again. All right. We'll talk to you later. See you.